Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome for maybe the first or second time to the 347th episode of the Geek First podcast. I'm the Boneyard Wrestling Trasnell.
I'm Adam Hartcaster, Dylan Muss.
Ooh, I'm the bartender, Taylor Field.
Nice.
The bartender. Well, you can check out our retrospective because usually we've done them before, but we're going to do it separate because this one could be a bit longer and whatnot. Plus, Clay, one of our longtime patrons and fan, he requests that we do Cocktail. So later on this week, check out on the feed. We'll be reviewing Cocktail by Tom Cruise. I think we have a lot to say about it in a very different way. Clay, I do feel that you maybe gave this movie to us as a joke, but yeah.
I think it was a great pick, honestly. I mean, we'll get into it on another cast, but I think it's a great pick, so thank you, Clay.
Thank you, Clay.
So yeah, and that's what you can do right now is you head over to Patreon. As always, I want to shout out to Richie, and we're also going to talk about Blake's Patreon question. But right now, at any tier, you can request a movie for us to do. So I think the next few weeks after this, we have Steel, which is a DC Shaq movie, and then like Shaq the basketball player, and then we got Snowpiercer. Those are left, and then after that, we got some plans for it because it looks like the world's not going back to normal anytime soon. So we got some plans for retros. Taylor, you want to pimp out? You dropped something this week. You ghost dropped at us.
I love doing a ghost drop. Overwrought or not, it is the 8th episode, which is funny because it was actually filmed a year ago before the Halloween episode. But
Wow.
It's still current. It's still great. It's still got tons of awesome, fun stuff in it, and yeah, so just go check it out, have some laughs. It's double the amount of time as a usual Rod or Not episode, so there's lots of extra footage in there and fun stuff to just entertain yourself.
Is that the longest episode that you've done before?
No, our comeback original, or episode 2 that we did 2 years ago was around 45 minutes. This one again is another 40 minutes just because it focuses more on the competitive side of me and Ruben playing these games, so I wanted to more or less include more of the gaming footage because there is so much more that's incorporated and needs to be focused on. So just kind of it's not really like quick cut as the usual episodes are, but it's good. It's entertaining.
Sweet.
Dylan, you got anything to pimp out?
Oh, geez, I don't think so. You can go back and check out my Animal Crossing review. I'm still playing that crazy, so yeah, go check that out, I guess.
Yeah, so we got actually a good amount of news today. I shouldn't say good because it's not good news, but it's news. So we're going to talk about some MCU being delayed. We're going to talk about Last of Us being delayed and what that could mean. We got some other topics. What else we talking about? We got some Mario games possibly being remastered, so that could be some fun. But first, we're going to start off, as I was referring to Patreon, that we have a question from Blake Nelson that he wanted us to list our top 5 superhero sidekicks or cop sidekicks. So he kind of threw me for a loop when he threw in cop, I'll be honest, because that's something a bit different. But does anyone want to go first with their selections?
I can start off. So I put some solid thought into this and realized I couldn't really come up with too many. I don't know, when I think about Marvel, I can't really picture too many iconic duos. I feel like that's more of a DC thing, or at least Batman and Robin. So I don't know, when it comes to comics, I couldn't really think of any iconic duos and therefore sidekicks that really stand out to me. So I kind of just have some cop ones here, and these ones are all super weird, so just bear with me. The first one I'm gonna shout out is I don't really know who's the sidekick and who's the main guy here, but in Detroit Become Human, which was a PS4 exclusive from a couple of years ago, there's kind of 3 stories in that game, and one of them is this kind of detective, this kind of alcoholic detective, and then his android partner, I guess. And we dropped Travis. Are we good, Travis? You dropped for a second?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so there's those 2 characters, and I really like the way that their relationship evolved. It's weird because it's when me and Travis talked on this review, or on the review rather, for him that dynamic wasn't really that interesting because one of them died pretty early on. But for me, that was a really awesome story from start to finish. So I mean, it wouldn't be the same for everyone, but I think that's a really great duo. Also gonna shout out, the other guys. I love that cop and sidekick duo. That's a really fun one. I don't really know who's the sidekick there. Who would you guys say is the sidekick and the other guys, if there is one, or are they kind of on equal footing?
I think they're equal footing, but I guess I lean towards Will Ferrell, but they're very close together.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and this one is also super weird, and most people are not going to understand this, but it's going to be Sarah and Tony from Survivor. So this is a really weird one because they both. I'm guessing most of. I don't know. I'm actually really curious what our audience thinks of Survivor. Me and Travis are big fans. We never talk
Mm-hmm.
about it on the podcast, but Sarah and Tony were just like this really fun duo because they've been on 3 seasons together now, which is really uncommon for people in Survivor. Normally, like, they bring people back, but it's not too common that you have these people that are on like 3 seasons together. But they started out in like this really funny way because Tony was always he lied about being a cop. He said he was like a construction worker or something, but she kind of picked up on the fact that he was a cop and kind of called him out for it. And so it's like this funny connection that they had, and then eventually he like cuts her loose and blindsides her. But I always thought that was like a really funny dynamic. And then they came back on a second season. They didn't actually like really interact in that season. And then they're currently on like the all winners season, and they're both still in the game, and they're kind of working together. And it's just a really fun duo. I would say Tony's probably like the main guy. Sarah's kind of the sidekick just because of how their first season went. But
Yeah.
who knows? She won her second season and he got knocked out. So it's interesting how it all shapes out. Um, and yes, honestly, I tried to come up with 5, but that's kind of the best I could do. I really did try to rack my brain, but I'll just give a super shout out to Samwise, the greatest sidekick of all time. Shout outs to Samwise.
Mm-hmm. So I got 5. Yeah, this was tough for me because I tried to keep it non-superhero related because we talk about superheroes so much, but I threw in my number 1 as just Robin because, like, that's the classic go-to. Plus, if you listen to other casts we've done before, he's in my top 10 comic book characters, and he's close to fictional. I'm a big fan, and specifically the Dick Grayson run, so there's that one. I can't remember his name for the life of me, but number 2, so that's not a great thing, but is in Rush Hour, you have Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker. I love the first 2. I'm a big fan of, so I love Chris Tucker in those movies. I kind of consider him the sidekick. I got Holland March from The Nice Guys. That's that Russell Crowe, Ryan Gosling movie, and they're like kind of PI slash cops. So it's not exactly. So it's a little bit of a cheat, but they're doing the same thing cops would do. They're investigating, looking into stuff. So I love him in that because he's kind of playing against type in that one. For me, he's playing kind of like a weird loser type of guy. If you look at Ryan Gosling, he's usually like a quiet killer or a smooth badass, or he's a lady killer, not killing any ladies, but just doing really well and smooth talker. So this was something different where he's kind of a loser. He's kind of always like this little Weasley guy, but he's still a good guy. He just like he can't really trust him because he's just always owning money to somebody. Blah blah. And I love that movie. I put in technically, they're space cops, but I put in Will Smith from the original Men in Blacks because I kind of consider him. I'll maybe just go the first one because after he takes the lead role, but Tommy Lee Jones is the full-on guy, and then he recruits Will Smith off the streets because he's kind of just a good beat cop, and then he brings him to the space program, and I think he kind of adds that nice levity of just like he's just in this world for the first time, learning about the aliens and whatnot. And then this one is in there because I just couldn't think of another one, and I had a tough time. But you can go watch it on Disney Plus. It's called Turner and Hooch. It's Tom Hanks when he's a cop, and he has a dog that's his sidekick. It's like a cute little '80s movie before Tom Hanks was like really huge. But it's on Disney Plus, so I picked Hooch the dog because I'm a big dog guy. And honestly, yeah, it was a tough one because there's like, and I was also trying to keep it to movies because I guess you could pick hundreds of Law and Order TV shows, right?
True.
I'm sure out there have it, but yeah. So those were my 5. Taylor, how about you?
Ooh, okay. So my first pick, ladies and gentlemen, is Mini-Me from Austin Powers. I just think he's just the ideal sidekick to Dr. Evil. I think he's just hilarious and just so out there. I'm kind of going through a little bit of an Austin Powers marathon right now, so I'm just kind of like really enjoying that whole vibe. My second pick is Hit Girl from Kick-Ass. I just think, as far as sidekicks go, she's just a badass superhero murderer. So, and then I also have Kato from the Green Hornet. I really, really like that movie with Seth Rogen. It's just an awesome, fun time. I think Kato is just such a badass. I love the way that movie was filmed. And I got Casey Jones, specifically from the 90s live action Ninja Turtles movie. I think that is super awesome. I love that representation of him, just as dynamic with Raphael. I think that's awesome. I'm going to be doing a Ninja Turtles marathon as well. um, and I also have Abe Sapien from Hellboy, specifically the ones with Ron Perlman. I think I just really, really love Abe Sapien in those two movies. I think he's hilarious, and I love his dynamic as a sidekick with Hellboy. I think he's just I know Ron Perlman brings a lot to the table with his personality and his like representation as Hellboy, but it just bounces back with Abe Sapien. That I can't remember the name of the actor who plays him, but just that character and that actor, just he works so well, and just he's one of my favorite sidekicks. So yeah.
Nice.
Very nice, very nice. So yeah, now let's go into some news. So we'll start with the big one, which we kind of knew was going to happen, but may as well talk about. So I got all the dates here. So they announced a bunch of release dates. Obviously, you got Quiet Place now coming out in September. You got Top Gun coming out in December, which I do not think is a good call. I think they should delay that the whole year, just because I feel like Top Gun it's a movie where guys are like, playing volleyball. They're on the beaches. So I don't really understand why they're going to put that in December. I just feel like it's not really a Christmassy movie, but I get it. But the biggest one was the MCU. Pretty, like, honestly, the whole MCU is officially delayed. These are all the delays. Pretty much they just pushed everything back a spot, but now Black Widow will be coming out November 6th, 2020. The Eternals have been pushed to February 12th, 2021. Shang-Chi will be out May 7th, 2021. Doctor Strange: The Multiverse of Madness will be coming out November 5th, 2021. So kind of back to where it started with that first Doctor Strange. And then Thor: Love and Thunder moving all the way back to February 18th, 2022. And then they also took the time to date, because there was an untitled Marvel movie, but they officially titled that. That's Captain Marvel 2, and that's July 8th, 2022. So I know we're going to talk about that, but the other two things of note is they didn't say anything about the Disney Plus shows, and some of those still have, I think actually not some, I think all of them have filming to do. And then nothing about Spider-Man, because that is not controlled by them. So I want to get your opinion on all that stuff, especially with Spider-Man. Some people are speculating, would that get delayed? Or obviously it could just get delayed in general because of the virus, but just because Sony has that, and they really, like, if you look at their track record, they love pumping out those movies every 2 years. So some people have been like, well, will they, kind of go against Feige and be like, yeah, well, we just won now, and does that mess up plans? I don't know. So what do you guys think about all
got
that?
Pushed too, didn't it? Even though it's slated for August right now. Uh-oh. Travis, you good?
Yep.
So technical difficulties today. Yeah, so I was asking, Morbius got pushed too, didn't it?
Yeah, Morbius got pushed to, I think Venom's still on track if it goes to plan this year, and I think Morbius is, well, actually, no, I think they all got pushed.
Venom's
I
going
think
to have to, right? Because it hasn't filmed yet.
Yeah, it is. It's filming right now, but I don't know if they finished or what their thing was. So yeah, I think Morbius is now next year. So
yeah, I mean, I don't know how much there is to say on this. Like, it's kind of just expected. I mean, I guess the one thing to note is that a lot of people have been talking about streaming, what's going to happen here or there, and Black Widow is just straight up getting pushed in favor of this. So I guess that's like the one thing of note that's definitely not coming out, within a month at this point. So that's, I mean, it's all too bad, but at the same time, you got to do what you got to do. There's just no way to make these shows happen right now. So I think it actually works out kind of well for the MCU, because they have all these dates set in stone. And now, obviously, if you look at those graphics that they made all nice in Comic-Con, those aren't accurate, but at least that general timeline, we can still like somewhat use that as a guideline in terms of when things are coming out, and then everything just gets slotted back one. So yeah, I mean, once again, shoutouts to me for predicting that Doctor Strange was going to get pushed. Totally not in this way, but I still was correct about that. So that's all I got to say on those.
yeah, Taylor, what do you got to say on the MCU getting pushed back, everything like that? And what do you think is going to happen with Spidey?
Yeah, it's I didn't see it not happening. I mean, granted, like they control their monopoly. They're not too worried. So what's another like year? They can handle that, and it sucks for us in the long run, but they got to do what they got to do. They want to make sure that people will be filling up those seats in the theater, and it's the safest thing to do as well. Plus, I don't want them to forcefully put these movies out too with little like breathing room in between at the compromise. Like if it compromises their story and what they're trying to tell, they have these movies spaced out for several reasons, but also the way I see it, in the form of like storytelling. So they don't want to compromise how they're doing things, and I think that's fair. I think that's okay. I'm totally okay with them shuffling things around. I think it makes sense, and it just means that 2021 is going to be the best year yet. As far as Spider-Man goes, I feel like, because we haven't seen Venom get pushed back, so I think that maybe whatever Sony's cooking, Sony might be kind of bold and be like, let's just keep Spider-Man on track with what it is, and just really screw over Marvel and Disney because we don't like you very much. So yeah.
Well, I want to reconfirm if Venom had not been pushed. Yeah, so that's a weird thing that they pushed back more. So Morbius's new date is March 19th, 2021, but they didn't push back Venom, which was supposed to come out after Morbius. So I'm surprised they didn't do the MCU switch around where it's like MCU obviously just shifted everything, right? Where they didn't do that. They deliberately pushed Morbius back, but not Venom. So I wonder if that's just a state of things, or I wonder if that's more of a worrisome in Morbius. Maybe they think Venom will be stronger. They don't want Morbius getting in the way, because I think Morbius has a very hit or miss quality to it. I think it could be lots of fun, but I also could think it'd be very generic and bad. So I kind of forgot that they didn't delay Venom, but they delayed Morbius. You'd think they'd put Morbius in October too. It's a horror month,
Well, that's what I'm wondering. Like, I would imagine that Morbius is done filming. Is that not the case?
Yeah, it has to be in like post-editing, post-production, and everything like that.
Yeah.
And Venom, I imagine it would. If they have any filming, I don't think there's too much. Like I think there's filming to do, but not the same. Morbius, I think, should be wrapping up unless they need to do lots of reshoots.
Yeah, I mean, which is always possible, especially because they just dropped a trailer like somewhat recently, and they base it on like fan reaction. What do people think? What do people think of the look? Like, do they want to change some stuff? So, I mean, obviously there's so much to it, plus even marketing and things like that, right? Like, you can't just, these things are so massive, there's so many hands in the pot that it's not easy to just do that stuff from home. And I mean, I have no idea, like Sony production studios, like we have no idea if they're like functional right now, or at least I haven't really looked into that. So
yeah, for me, it's one, like obviously we talked about, it was kind of inevitable that was going to happen, but it's just so strange to see, like, something about, like, you have that graph now and like everything's pushed back. And the thing is why I do think it's not a massive MCU, still MCU, but I always feel they always place certain movies on a particular date because they want to make sure it's a hit. I was saying that November is kind of like this nice trial test that they do for movies, so I thought that's why it made sense that Eternals was there, stuff like that. And now it's weird to see Shang-Chi on the kind of Avengers date, right? We've talked about that before with, Doctor Strange, they're putting that in May because that's their big month, and that's kind of the month they always kick off the season. So I think from just a little point of view, that's kind of weird to see, like, will certain movies, because I felt like they do the smaller MCU movies in like a February, November, because those are a little bit slower, but right before a season, where the spring or summer, like Captain Marvel or what Doctor Strange used to be, it's like, oh, well, these are bona fide hits, there's lots of competition, but if we put out Doctor Strange right now, it's fine. So it's weird to see Doctor Strange like again in November. So the only thing that I'm just like, I'm bummed about, all, of course, these are just all first world problems, there's more stuff to be bummed about, we hope you're all safe, but I really want those Disney Plus shows, and I hate that none of them were done filming before all this happened, because we've talked about Mandalorian, that obviously they can't just drop it because they got to do editing, everything like that, but that show's done. So it's one of those things that in a few months, even if cross your fingers the world's not back to normal by the fall, they could ghost drop it, give us some form of entertainment, not ghost drop it, but just like drop it earlier than expected, where the Marvel shows you can't do that. And now it's just kind of, I think that's why Black Widow got delayed so long, because it's not even like earlier in the fall, it's November. Obviously, that's one of their dates, but people have said, we've talked about this, that could be tied directly to Falcon Winter Soldier. So that is the pro and con of a connected universe, ladies and gentlemen. It's the pro where you get this TV show where people want to come back, but it's also con where you delay one thing. Like we just talked about Morbius and Venom. I think there's some connection, but really you could delay them, and it doesn't really matter because there's just like maybe a little Easter egg here or there. Where this, it's like, yeah, you can't do Falcon, let's say Falcon Winter Soldier was done, you can't, if those rumors are true, you can't put that out because that could spoil something in Black Widow, right? So that is the unfortunate thing about a connected universe. So if one thing moves, it all moves. And with Spider-Man, I think they will move, not even just because of the MCU connection. I think they will just because I think just with the world. And I also think Spider-Man 3 will be connected to the MCU, but still not in a massive way because I feel like it's going to be a lot to do with his story about maybe being on the run or something like that. So I don't think it would spoil too much going on in the MCU if Sony was really wanting to be, like, let's say things got back to normal and Sony could put out the movie at the same time and it was not shifted like the rest. I'm sure there'd be some kind of pain. I guess the other thing I forgot to mention is, again, we talk about this, but poor New Mutants, you know. New Mutants just can't catch a break. And the thing is, it's not even dated. And I did find this out because people were kind of wondering about this. They can't do, because the Fox still, and I never knew this until now, they can't put it directly to streaming because HBO has the first rights to streaming. So technically it would be they go to the theater, it goes to HBO, and then it would go to like Hulu, Disney Plus. So they can't even be like coming to Disney Plus. It's going to be New Mutants. So I don't know if that was just, it's always been known, or if it's just new information that came out now. So that's one that, which sucks because I feel like that would be the same way they dropped Onward. I think that would be a good, whether it's on Disney Plus or just even the VOD. I think they, because I don't think that movie's going to be massive at the box office, so I think you could kind of eat a little loss there, but they can't even do that. I guess they could maybe do VOD, but they can't do the Onward thing where it's like, oh, there, and then right away we have it. They'd have to kick it to HBO or HBO Go, which is still launching in May, the HBO Go app. So that's what's going on in New Mutants. So yeah, we're just never going to see that movie, you know? It's never going to happen.
Yeah, it's too bad. I've been waiting for that one for a long time, and
oh yeah,
it's just never gonna happen anymore.
Almost 4 years now, yeah.
Yeah, that's fucking crazy. That's like almost as long as GB has been assembled.
Oh yeah,
so
yeah, it's crazy. We'll keep you updated, but yeah, those kind of put to bed all those rumors of VOD and streaming, which makes sense. And but if the world does get back, it's going to be a bump to November because it's going to be Bond and Black Widow same month, like spy movies. The one movie, it's funny that we haven't heard. All these big movies have been delayed, and it's kind of like a joke on the internet right now because he's like who he is, but there's been zero word on Tenet moving. And Tenet, obviously, it's a bit longer because July, but everyone's just been like, oh, Nolan's not going to move his movie just because, you know, he's Nolan. But it's like, it's funny because if that movie gets moved, I'm wondering, like, a lot of movies, either we're going to get a really crammed fall or we're going to get a really, really kind of spread out movie season next year with a lot of, like, every date that we kind of knew is gone, but I'm wondering if it's going to happen because if Tenet moves to fall as well, Black Widow, Tenet, and Bond, I know they're all very different movies, but the main focus is genre of like being a spy film, right? So that's kind of funny.
Yeah, no, that's the one movie that I would not be able to watch like on streaming. I want to see that movie in the theaters. It's just going to be, whether it's like the sound, just the music blasting in your ears, or just like these big set pieces. Like, I don't want to watch that on my discount TV. I want to watch that on the big screen. So
yeah,
that's the thing that's rough. Like, you know, if to get to that point, because I'm sure he wants the same thing, right? I know that's probably the way the movie's made. So like, that's gonna have to wait until, I mean, that's the thing, like, even once, you know, this is kind of subsided or things have gotten better, like, there's still gonna be that stigma of people that are like, I don't really want to go to a big public space right now, even if it is safe. So who knows when that movie's going to come out now, and I don't know when we'll hear about it, because he kind of does his own thing, right? Like, he's not really too closely associated with other studios. Like, he kind of just does his own thing, right?
Well, so he is all his films except for like his first two have been with Warner Brothers, because after Batman, I think they're really like, we want to keep him. So I think it might be hyperbolic, but if Warner Brothers ever released this on streaming or VOD, I think he would leave and not work with them anymore. I think he's that type of filmer, because he's been on record many times how he's not a fan of Netflix and the streaming model. Like, he's kind of like, I don't think he doesn't say, or he's out of touch as like some of the things Scorsese says, but he's very much in that Spielberg Scorsese camp. Like, I think he's just smarter about it, what he says, but I think he feels exactly with them a lot. Like, I've always said I would love to sit down Christopher Nolan, just ask him what he feels about certain superheroes movie now, like after The Dark Knight, right? Because he kicked off like this huge genre. So I think if they released it VOD, he would never forgive them, and he would be out of there, because I think that's one that I agree that you have to see, and I think it would do it like less justice if they put out VODs. So I'm not sure what you do. I wonder in all this too. I know this is like a weird thought, but I wonder if Avatar is going to use this as another reason to delay their film even more. We talk about New Mutants, Avatar 2, which was supposed to be in like 2015. Like there's no the filming, and because they're still not done filming, so that's gonna be a fun thing. But yeah, and that's the other thing too. And you're talking about people just being scared coming out. We're gonna talk about that's with the game when we get to Last of Us. But there's been like lots of reports that in the next 2 years you won't see any movie hit $1 billion. Not even just because people are scared, just because people are gonna be financially recovering, right? So people aren't gonna have money to throw around just to go to the movies, drive, get snacks and everything. It's gonna be a while before you see those numbers ever happening again. So
Yeah, definitely.
Taylor,
Unprecedented
anything
times.
else? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say it's unprecedented. We just have no idea. It's just a waiting game. Every day is something different, right?
Mm-hmm. Taylor, anything to say on that?
No, just that it's yeah, I think the movie's cursed. I don't think it's gonna come out for a while. I think their only solution and way of salvation is to just drop it on Disney Plus.
Well, they can't.
Well, I think then it'll be lost in the history books for all time, and we'll never see it
I
ever.
think we will see at one point. We may be retired at that point. You know, we might be on GV or 50. But I'll throw to you on this one first, Taylor, because here's at least some good news. So they hired a new Ant-Man 3 writer, so that movie's happening. So they're still doing some stuff, so that's a good thing. People can still write and storyboard and whatnot. So Ant-Man 3 is happening. They hired a new writer. Paul Rudd has written the initial script, so I'm not sure if he's collaborating with this new writer or it's a new script entirely. I imagine it's the former where he's collaborating because Paul Rudd has writing credits on both Ant-Man 1 and 2, but there's been rumors again. There's a few weeks ago we talked about this, and I talked about this on Alone Dynamic Duo. That's kind of come out again that it does look like MODOK is going to be in this movie, some version of him or somewhat, whether he's a main villain or anything. And the main plot seems to be that his daughter Cassie wants to join the Avengers, and Hope and Scott are going to try to stop that. And I'm not sure if that's kind of like the wacky comedy family thing. But what do you guys hear initially that? And there's also been kind of rumors that maybe this could be another start to Young Avengers. I imagine the idea is these rumors are maybe she decides not to join the Avengers and they create their own unit. But what are you kind of hearing these kind of, you got a new writer kind of hearing some initial rumblings of what the plot may be for Ant-Man 3?
I mean, like, I do want MODOK. I feel like my first experience with MODOK was back in, like, the other Ultimate Alliance games. It's something that I've always just found him like to be such a like weird character, but he's also like a villain that I've always wanted to see in like a live action setting. But I never ever thought we would actually see him in live action, just because I thought like how they were doing the movies, I felt like he was just so like far like to the side that he was just kind of get overlooked, I guess. But that being said, like I'm super excited to actually see like, wow, we're in this period where they're actually going to throw him into, you know, a movie, and that movie happens to be Ant-Man, which I do love the Ant-Man movies, so I definitely feel like this will be just a win-win. I feel like putting a family dynamic is super awesome, and I feel like that's something that makes sense because they did such a focus and emphasis on the fact that, you know, she didn't get snapped, so she actually grew up and is now an adult, and that they can use that for whatever they need to, I guess. I'm wondering where are her parents like in the storyline at this point. Like, did the mom and the dad like did they die or are they gone or?
I don't know because they would have aged too, so I'm not sure. She was living in the same house, right? So I'd imagine that they were alive. I guess they can just say they make them look a tad older. Not even 5 years isn't too much, right? So I don't think they got snapped just because she was in the same location. But I think they didn't answer that in Endgame because they hadn't decided what they want to do with it. So I imagine they're cracking that right now with the script. But I think when they filmed Endgame, they didn't know if they were gonna like what the deal is with those parents.
I see. Yeah, other than that, I don't know, I'm just excited to see MODOK. I mean, I pitched you who I think should play it. I think it should be Danny DeVito. I think he's perfect.
Oh, no.
I think, you know, as long as they focus on, like, the comic book form and they don't give him, like, a horrible, like, reskin or something modern, like, they make him, like, some, like, thin, lean, tall guy walking around and just is, like, got like a sexy MODOK vibe. I don't want that. I want full 100%
sexy MODOK vibe.
I want full
who would
legs.
you cast as a sexy MODOK?
Someone with really nice legs.
Yeah.
Well, see, my original first thought was Jude Law, but I can't pick him because he's already used. So, you know what? I'd probably go with like a Hugh Jackman.
Oh my god.
That is a wild casting.
He didn't want to do Wolverine. He didn't want to jack up, but you know what he wanted to do? He wanted to play a big, gigantic head. So, I'd kind of be down for it if he's gonna be another superhero again. And it's not Wolverine. Just make it something stupid and wacky. So it's not awful for sexy MODOK, but I don't think we're ever gonna see a sexy MODOK. So I think you're safe.
Yeah, dude, MODOK's interesting. Like, yeah, I remember I can like distinctly remember the first time I ever acknowledged that character in my life was, I think it was at your place, Travis. It was in one of the Lego Marvel games, and I was like, what the fuck is this character? This is such a weird looking guy. And now, he's in Ultimate Alliance, and I've seen him I don't know, just some pictures of him in comics and stuff. And yeah, he's got a super weird look, and yeah, you can't do the same thing that you did with Baron Zemo in taking away his cape and taking away his purple
super
flare.
realistic.
Yeah, you can't do that and say it's MODOK. Like, well, you can obviously, but I feel like that would just make the deep cut comic book fans really mad, and I want to see it. I want to see their attempt at some really zany looking character, and who knows, maybe I've just because of Ultimate Alliance, I've associated MODOK more with Black Panther and that storyline, Wakanda and stuff like that. So I think it's interesting that he's part of Ant-Man. Is that happened a lot in the comics, Travis? That like Ant-Man versus MODOK sort of thing?
I wouldn't say specifically he's never been like a main villain. I think MODOK has often been a villain too of like just the Avengers as a group, and Ant-Man's been kicking around. So I think they have a history, but it's kind of like with Ghost and Ant-Man too. I guess Ghost used to be a he, but he was an Iron Man villain, and they kind of plotted that, like took it away from them and put it to Ant-Man. So it's not uncommon. So I think they've had battles, but not like this is one of his greatest rivals. It's just kind of like, okay, this is a character. I also just think they'd be putting in because Ant-Man 3 can it's a bit more on the comedic side, and I think MODOK, anybody who plays it's gonna be comedic, so I think that's why it's probably going there.
I could just foresee some one-liners of Ant-Man insulting MODOK and his weird look and stuff, and who knows, maybe like MODOK is after like some of that PIM technology, and he's like shrinking AIM soldiers as like some sort of infiltration sort of thing. Like, who knows what the storyline is going to be, but I think that's a fun team up. I think it fits, as you said, like that kind of more cartoony. Like, obviously in the last Ant-Man movie, there's like people throwing giant salt shakers around and little toy cars turning into giant trucks. Like, it is just kind of a little bit wackier, so I think it kind of fits well in there. And it's cool that like Ant-Man's getting one of these quote unquote bigger MCU or not MCU villains, but Marvel villains. So I think that's interesting. As for the storyline with his daughter,
Cassie,
like obviously it's so early on that it's like impossible to say like if that's going to be the kind of the final product. But I guess the one thing I would hope for is that we do get a lot of the movie with Paul Rudd and his daughter working together, because I mean we like obviously they had a lot of chemistry, like Paul Rudd and the little girl who plays his daughter like in the first movie, and I guess the second movie as well, and that's really fun. But obviously she's that actress that we just saw for like a moment in Endgame now, so we don't really like know their chemistry necessarily, but I really want to see them team up like father-daughter, just because we don't have too many of those family relationships in the MCU, so I think that's like a fun dynamic that I would hope we wouldn't just make it something where they're like not together the whole movie and they're kind of chasing each other. So obviously you got to set it up. There's got to be a conclusion and introduction. Obviously you'd see them like either where she's splitting off from them, or you'd see them get together, like reunite at the end or something. But I don't know. Whatever it is, I'm kind of curious. I'm down, and I like that Ant-Man is kind of the movie within the MCU, or the two movies in the MCU that really focus a lot on that father-daughter relationship, or just like that deep family relationship. So I think it's awesome that the third movie is taking it like one step further and giving her something more to do. And I think that's like something underrated with Ant-Man, is that it has introduced a lot of like great side, quote unquote, side characters, and like Wasp is an awesome character, and she's kind of part of the Avengers, quote unquote, somewhat now. So I think it's great to just throw more characters in the mix and have some fun with it. So I'm down for these kind of rumblings about Ant-Man.
Yeah, with MODOK, I kind of said this before, whether you love the movie or like it or don't like it. With Endgame, once I saw that final battle, I kind of went, okay, they can do anything in the MCU now. It's just like this massive scope, and it looks like a comic book. So when I saw it, I'm like, okay, I'll believe anything. Like, you have Howard the Duck. It's just all this stuff. So, and I honestly, I don't know what they're going to take with MODOK. Obviously, it has to be comedic, but I think it would be good to like go in the route of getting someone on the Apatow crew or something. I think that'd be lots of fun. But
yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, like maybe Steve Carell or something. But the family stuff I think I like. And the other good thing with Cassie and him is you could have that building relationship with Hank Pym as well. If Cassie's becoming a superhero, we saw that in the first movie where it was he didn't want Hope to become that because what happened to his mother, right?
Yeah.
So, or her mother, right? So you kind of have that dynamic of Cassie. She has a suit, she's experimenting, she wants to have these Avengers join the Avengers, and you can have him going to Hank of like, oh, what,
Mm.
how did you feel? So there's already that kind of parallel to the first movie there. They both
That's
got
true.
daughters.
Yeah. That's what I
Yeah,
was
so I
wondering.
think
Like, are they almost retreading the same ground? But the more I thought about it, the more I felt like there's like been so much built up to that relationship, whereas the other stuff was kind of unsaid, or like that was just how it started. But if we evolved into that with this, with Ant-Man and his daughter, that could be, it'd be like, yeah, it'd be a parallel, but at the same time, it'd be in such a different way that I think it's worth doing. So
yeah, and I think the other thing I want to see, because Spider-Man did it a lot in a humorous way, but I do want to see more of the after effects of the snap, and seeing Paul Rudd
mm-hmm.
having to deal with missing 5 years of his daughter's life is a big thing. Where Spider-Man, we got that a little bit, like I said, that was more just Aunt May being like, "Oh, I came in someone's hotel and here I am," and stuff like that. So I think actually having him dealing with it, I'm not saying it has to be a depressing movie, but just he did lose time with her, right? He lost a lot of growing up. He's gonna probably see, and I think that kid actress will be back because they might do flashbacks, or he might be watching videos of her having birthdays without him and stuff like that.
Yeah,
So
good
I think
call.
there's a way to kind of give her like a little bit of a send off in a way, just like little flashbacks. So I hope that's what they do. And I always support. I want Peyton Reed, the guy that directs these movies. I want him to do Fantastic Four because I love the family dynamic, and he almost directed one back in the 2000s. So I kind of hope that maybe this is it for him with Ant-Man, which is strange because with those rumors of Cassie maybe joining the Avengers, something like that, we've kind of all pinged that either Wasp or him would join. So that's why I do believe some of those rumors that maybe she does like a Young Avengers thing, does her own thing, and they're over there. I don't know. There's lots to play with. So that's a good thing. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's see. Let's move into the video game side now. I want to start off with these Mario remaster games. There's rumors right now that for 2020, Marvel, goddamn, the Marvel on the brain, Mario and Nintendo, they're going to be remaking or remastering a bunch of classic games. So there's been rumors of Sunshine. There's been rumors of Galaxy, among others, and there's also rumors of a new Paper Mario game that also got strengthened because, believe it or not, who knows? But there's like images going around of E3's Nintendo's what their direct would have been.
Mm.
So, and that was on there along with like a Metroid Prime release trailer and like a Pikmin 3. But what do you think about these Mario remasters potentially happening, and which ones do you want?
Yeah. So yeah, I can't remember what increment it is, but it is like a anniversary year for Mario. So I think this is perfect, especially if it's like a little bit of a down year in the sense that like Breath of the Wild 2 is almost certainly not going to come out this year. Metroid still needs some time to ferment a bit and turn into a finished product. So I think now is the perfect time to bring back some of these Mario games. So obviously, yeah, it's the 3D ones that have kind of been shouted out. So 64, Sunshine, Galaxy 1, 2, and then 3D World. As for these, like Mario 64 is one of my favorite games ever. Like I love that game so much. I still do to this very day. I think it's probably the most interesting speedrun game ever, and like it still works as a game if you go back and play it. It just feels so good. I think the only problem with it is the fact that it is on the N64 and that controller is really bad, or at least mine have not aged well, and the control sticks are all janky. And for a game with really precise movement and where all you're doing is movement, it kind of sucks to have that be the case. So I think that'd be great if they bring this forward, give it a new coat of paint. And obviously we have seen one other Mario 64 remake that was on the I don't think it was 3DS. I think it was, I want to say, the original DS. I never got it. It added a few things. It added like you could play as Luigi and Yoshi and Wario, I believe. I think it added some new stars. But that as well was on it didn't have a control stick either on the DS, so it was kind of limited. So I think like it's perfect time to bring it back. And I guess my main question is, if they do Mario 64, do you guys think it will be like with that DS added content, or would it just be the original game with souped up graphics?
I mean, me personally, I feel like it would probably be like just I'd probably say it would be like the graphics just kind of like redone up a little bit. I think it would have like all the like any other like extra content. I mean, I feel like it'd also be maybe an opportune time if they wanted to add anything into the game, like any kind of like not just like bug fixes or patches, but maybe even like extra content, like, oh, here's like an extra couple like levels just for fun, or here's some extra like incentives to do this, or just that kind of stuff. But I feel like primarily it would be like mostly focused on like a graphical overhaul or graphical like remastering.
Yeah, and I'm fine with either. I've never played the DS version. If it has some more content and doesn't take away from any of the previous stuff, then that's a-okay with me. But yeah, that's like, to me, that would be like, if even if that was an $80 game, which I really hope it's not if they do remake it, even if they throw some extra goodies in there, it still like doesn't feel like it's right to charge $80 for that. But I mean, they did for Link's Awakening, so who knows what they'll do. But yeah, like that Super Mario 64 would be a day one purchase for me without question. Like, I would love that. As for the other ones, like, I was never really a Sunshine fan, so that one like is fine. It's awesome if people get that, but I would probably skip that one. But I think the most interesting part would be Galaxy 1 and 2, either one, both of them, whatever, because those games just totally passed me by. Like, I've played a little bit of them at friends' house, but never owned them, never rented them, anything like that. So I've desperately wanted to go back and play them. So I would love if they brought those games to Switch, and I would definitely buy those as well. Hopefully it'd be a 2-pack, or who knows, maybe they'd do a 3D pack and include all of those games together. That would be awesome for like a lower price than each of them would be individually. I guess the only thing for Galaxy could be controls, because as far as I know, you'd like shake the Wiimote around to do certain things, and I don't know if you had to point at things. I don't know if that was a big part of the game.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah,
it was annoying
to get like coins or stars or something like that. So, yeah, I don't know. Like, obviously the Switch does have capabilities of that somewhat, but then again, if you're playing like handheld mode or something, that could be problematic. So I don't know how they'd fix that. Like, hopefully they have an option that you can do it without motion controls, because that was something, for example, that really annoyed me in Breath of the Wild. Like when I was playing through it, I played with my Pro controller plugged in, and there's a few like shrine puzzles in the game that involve you moving like the gyroscopes around in your Switch. So I literally had to go pick up my Switch to solve certain puzzles and then put it back in the dock and plug my controller back in.
Yeah,
it's like really, really, really bad. Like how I don't even think it's an oversight. It's like, we need you to do this puzzle in this way, even though a control stick can easily do the same thing. So that kind of annoyed me. So hopefully they find a better workaround for Galaxies. As for 3D World on the Wii U, like, obviously that system's kind of been, just didn't really have the sales, so a lot of people have skipped that game. I don't think they need to remake that one. I think that one's by far the least priority. It still looks great, and it still plays well. Obviously, it's on a kind of defunct system, so to speak. But yeah, the other four I think would be just the perfect time to put those games out.
Yeah, I'm with you on 3D World. I love 3D World, but maybe it's just one of those things they do it because they've done that with other games on the Wii U that people just kind of missed, right? Because the Wii U era, people didn't enjoy. And I get it. The Wii U is not the greatest console, but I always defend it because there were some really great games on there, but it was just so quiet that no one cared.
Yeah.
With Sunshine, I'm a massive Sunshine fan, so I would love that. I haven't played in years. I had a copy and I lost it, so I've been bummed about that. I've never been able to find it. So that's a day one for me. I agree with Dylan when we're talking about 64, that'd be another day one, just because that experience, that's one of those, it's kind of like always teetering in my top 10. I think when we did our top 10 games, it might have been in there, to be honest, but it's always in that conversation for me. 64, like all the memories I had from it, the score, the level design, and it was
the
just
music is so good. I still listen to some of the music like often. Like when I'm stressed out, I just put on Dire Dire Docks and it just thaws me right out, dude. That soundtrack is so good.
And I think it's one of those, like, me and Liam did a cast a long time ago, and maybe we should do this one time, and maybe there's a certain show we could do it on, is like most important video games, not necessarily like the best, just games that changed the history of video games, and that's one of them. It's the same way for me. Like, I always put like a BVS in films, where it's like, it's not a great film, but it's important because like what it spawned and all the backlash, all the outpouring, everything like that. And it's the same with 64. Like, that changed Mario and Nintendo forever. That was just such this moment when you played it as a kid. It was just you couldn't believe what you were playing from all, especially when I showed my dad too. It's just one of those, and now it's just like the norm, right? But when you look back on that, to me, is still a game, and that's why I think Sunshine is less, because it kind of 64 reinvented the wheel, where Sunshine was just like a nicer wheel in a way. But I think with that, I just loved the world. I love anytime you just got a bad version of the character we love. So I love like the dirty ink Mario. So I think I just have maybe, I think I've always said this on the cast too. Maybe if I played it, I'd kind of be in your bandwagon, Dylan. So maybe it's just nostalgia. But hey, for nostalgia, I'll probably still get it. Galaxy, great game, but that to me is dependent on if what Dylan's talking about with motion controls, if they would switch that or not. The motion controls, literally, you have to do it like almost every level, because there's like, I can't remember what exactly it is. It's been a while since I played, but you get caught in this like star system where you'll have to use motion to like select a star to kind of like shoot yourself to, like Donkey Kong, like with the style, like, yeah. And that was almost in every level, and it was annoying to have to do that, get up every time, do motion. The motion controls for Nintendo have never been perfect. So to me, that the easiest fix is just you use your analog stick to move over, and that's it. Yeah, sure, it seems a little done without it, but I thought it was a great game. But I did finish the first one, but it was in spurts. It took me a while because I just that's why I'm not. I've said that all the time. I'm not a motion guy. So if that still had the motion, kind of like what you're talking about with Breath of the Wild for Switch, if that had it, it's not a purchase for me. I'd love to play it again. But so 64 and that, or 64 and Sunshine are day ones. I would love sometime in the future, we've talked about, for even to get a Strikers remastered would be phenomenal.
Well, I want to say quickly,
yeah, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, for Galaxy, like, there is workarounds, right? Because the Switch has way more buttons than the Wii did, right? Like, it has like, triggers and bumpers, whereas let's say you were just using the, well, actually, I don't know, for Galaxy, you probably could just use the Wiimote. You probably didn't need a nunchuck, right? Do you remember?
I think it recommended you needed the nunchuck.
Probably recommended, so, but it probably wasn't mandatory. But now with the Switch, obviously, you have the bumpers, you can click in the sticks as well. So there's just more buttons. That there's definitely an easy, well, sometimes with Nintendo, what seems easy is never easy, but there should be a pretty straightforward solution, just with the fact that you have more buttons that you can use to apply to those certain commands.
Yeah. My only other two that I show as like kind of dream ones, along with Strikers, is I'd love Super Mario RPG. I got it on the SNES Classic, so I got to play that again. But I'd love just a revamped version. I guess another one too. I've always said this, even though the new Mario Party is a bit better, I'd pay $100 for like a remastered Mario Party 2, to be honest. Just the same game, dude. Just looking better. Oh, I would, because I love that game so much. And then the other one is just because.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, the other one is just because me and Taylor were kind of disappointed with the sequel, but I would just love there's not much work that needs to be done to it, but is Luigi's Mansion, same way as Sunshine. Just give me that again. I would love to play that, but I still got on the GameCube, but those are just some other ones I'd shout out.
Yeah, I was going to say it'd be cool if they did like a N64 Mario Party collection, like just compile 1, 2, and 3. Yeah, it was just 1, 2, and 3 on that console, I believe. But just bundle those all together. That'd be sweet. Like, put all the mini games together, have all the boards. Like, that would be really cool. And the other like low key game that I don't think I've ever heard anyone talk about is, it was on Game Boy Advanced. Yeah, Game Boy Advanced, I believe it was. It was just called Mario vs. Donkey Kong. There was some pseudonym I can't remember, but it was like a puzzle game that where you play as Mario, obviously, and you have like these little Mario robots, I guess, that you send around the level to do certain things. And I don't know, it was just a really cool puzzle game that I think would be sweet to see that game as well. But that one would be like, I don't know, I would think like a $30-$20 game, like just a smaller one. But that's another like kind of low key pick that I'd really like to see.
Yeah, that's the only other thing I'll mention I forgot to. I think, unfortunately, all these games will be full-price games just because, one, there's not going to be many new games. I think lots of games are going to get delayed in production. And also, I just think that's the way Nintendo rolls. And Nintendo, to me, is always kind of like the Disney of gaming, where it's kind of like, yeah, they'll do as much for it as you can, but then they want to get their money, and they do some good deals. But we always talk about that with games, right, that are still so old, and it's like, yeah, maybe they're $5 off for a sale or something like that. It's like, okay, great.
Hopefully the workaround is a bundle, right? Like, if you want Galaxy, boom, it comes with Galaxy 1 and 2, so it justifies it a bit more. Or like, obviously the whole 3D collection is it's kind of a pipe dream, but that would be sick as well. But yeah, hopefully they can at least bundle some of these games together to give you a little bit more bang for your buck.
Taylor, anything to add, or are we good to move on?
I mean, gosh, yeah, most of the games that, I would say are pretty much all the ones that you guys have said. I mean, I want, a Mario Strikers brought back over to the Switch.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
that'd be great. I like for me, like the biggest selling point for me to move on to the Switch and get rid of my Wii U was I needed literally like one of all of these games. You know, when the main kicker was I already got Pokken announced. That was a big one for me. And then the main kicker was, okay, they announced a new Smash Bros. So I'm like, okay, that's good. Like I can commit over to this and, you know, feel good about it. And then like everything else like was like just that bonus for me that made me love the Switch even more. Like Mario Maker 2, that was another staple for me having the Wii U. I really love that game passionately. And then getting Luigi's Mansion was again just like mind-boggling. Okay, like that's just another huge staple for me. You know, getting like I played Mario Odyssey, but it wasn't like really like my kind of jam. For me, Sunshine is definitely just that was my go-to. Like I love Sunshine. I have had so much fun with Sunshine, and I would love to see that get brought back onto the Switch or get like another like Mario game. But then Strikers is just the one that's it's the one that I don't have yet on the Switch, and I'm just waiting for something. And if they do a remastered version of that, I would be totally sold. You know, I do want, you know, even like an old school Mario Kart redone. I think that'd be kind of cool. You know, gosh, what else? Even the old like Mario Power Tennis like redone. I think that'd be fun. Just kind of like recode it. I'd even take like Wario World for crying out loud. But I think there's just so much potential. I'd really like to see like Melee redone. I'm not gonna lie. I think that'd be really cool to have Melee like the same game mechanics and how it feels, just visually reskinned with like the graphics of like the current Smash Bros. I think that'd be super cool.
That's such a scary prospect to me, just because I feel like it's almost impossible for them to do that where I would be 100% content with it. There'd be a few things where I'm like, oh man, they changed this and that really bothers me. Or even just like this, you know, because of the hardware it's on, it's not as responsive as Melee was, and I just can't, like, it doesn't feel right. It feels like I'm playing like a, you know, a hacked version or something. So that's of course like what every Melee player wants is like an Melee HD, but my God, it's just like they would have to get so many things right for that to like be perfect. So I don't know. Like, I wonder if they would ever.
But you
do
know,
that.
you'd all buy it.
I mean, I would
right?
100% buy it. I'm
Yeah,
chained to. I've bought like multiple console. Like I was not gonna buy a Wii U until Smash was announced. Like when the Switch Smash got announced, that's what convinced me to get the Switch all of a sudden. So I mean, I'd of course get it. But Travis, I wanted to ask you one quick thing that me and Taylor were talking about when you were getting some water. Is so Mario 64, they did like a DS version, like a remaster where they added some new stars, and then they had like Wario, Yoshi, Luigi playable. I don't know what else they changed. Would you want them to have that version or just the original version, like just pure form like the original game?
I think it's the same as you talking about with Smash, right? I'd worry about how much stuff they'd or like kind of maybe add in or change and whatnot. Because to me, it's like we could get some cool new stuff, so that'd be great. But also, like I said, I'd worry what could be changed. If it was the full and exact game plus these new additions, then great. But if there's some maybe like, oh, this level's tweaked a little, this that, I would just want to go the nostalgic route. And also, that's just me saying because I'm blind, I haven't played that version, right?
Yeah,
so
me neither.
maybe it's great and people love it. But I if I had to pick, I would just to be safe, I'd say let's just take that old game kind of spruced up a little bit, but I'm not opposed to it.
I don't know. I don't think people can have like a valid opinion on it almost just because it's like on a D-pad. Like it's impossible to really have that super satisfying movement of Super Mario 64 when you're limited by these controls. I don't know. Maybe people like uploaded it to an emulator and people can play it with a GameCube controller or whatever on PC. I'm sure that's been done, but yeah, I think that's kind of where that one stands. It just was, unfortunately, the controls kind of held it back from being a great game, or a great remaster, rather.
Well, let's talk about this because here comes a can of worms. So, Last of Us Part 2, it got delayed to just indefinite, not getting released digital early, even though Neil Druckmann did do an interview saying all that stuff's still being discussed. But they've said it's not a gaming issue or anything like that development. It's just they want the right amount to, you know, kind of, I think the pomp and circumstance to get it out there, release everything like that. So this is where, one, we didn't hear anything of Ghost of Tsushima, and then we also, in my opinion, we were talking about this in our group chat, PS5 is tentative, and both consoles are tentative for the fall. I think that is a crapshoot. Now I would throw that out the window. I just think this is gonna have such a huge domino effect because we talked about this, and I'll throw you, Dylan, first.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that? One, I'll just say that I'm very bummed. Again, all this is just first world problems, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I'm just happy that friends and family are happy and healthy. But I kept saying to you guys because I knew it was gonna get delayed. I'm like, I just want just this one more game, and then everything else can go delayed because I've been very looking forward to. Plus, it's like just a great story game I've been looking to sink my teeth into. So
Yeah.
I'm bummed out that way. But yeah, what are your thoughts about this? And what are your thoughts about affecting PS5? Kind of, I think inevitably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sucks, but yeah, this one isn't too surprising. Like, obviously they said the game is like pretty much done. This is strictly because of, this will limit their physical sales. This will limit the impact of like, some people aren't going to be able to buy it. And they would have to kind of skip it, on launch, which is never what you want.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think even like the subject matter of the game, right, is another thing. Like, wait until people are a little bit happier, possibly, and and then people will like receive the game better. I don't know if that had something to do with their choice, but yeah, I think along with Last of Us, they also delayed Ironman VR, and that's the one that I actually find a little bit more treacherous because Last of Us, they delay it. Whenever that game comes out, it's going to sell like crazy. It possibly might be the greatest selling PS4 game. Like, it might, it'll take a few months or something,
Mhm.
maybe years, but I think it could get to that point. But Iron Man VR is a sketchy one because, one, like, this is kind of the biggest game ever for PlayStation VR. Like, obviously it's not out yet, but that's kind of the vibe it was giving off, that like this is going to be the big one, that like this is going to be the peripheral seller. People are going to play this, see it at a convention or at the Best Buy, whatever it is, and then they're going to want to buy it. And obviously that impact's going to be gone. From one, like, people aren't going to be able to get their hands on it as easily, but two, let's say this game gets delayed from March all the way to around the fall. Let's say in this hypothetical world that the PS4 or PS5 rather still comes out that time. There's no way you're selling PlayStation VR headset around the time PS5 comes out. Obviously, some people will, but realistically, most people are like, "Hey, I'm saving for this new console. This new console is really expensive." There's some people that need to get the Xbox and the PS5, so they're not going to have the expendable money to also buy VR, especially if there's maybe rumblings that PSVR 2 is a thing at some point. So I think Ironman VR is the one that really, really is going to pay for this delay, unfortunately, whereas I think Last of Us really doesn't care. I think kind of finally what you touched on there of, is PS5 going to get delayed? I think it's pretty likely at this point, and I think it's very different for Xbox and PlayStation because, like, look at so far, like, what PlayStation's marketing plan has been, right? Like, last year around this time, they started doing some of those Wired articles where they said, here's some information, we're going to reduce load times, just like little tiny information. And then obviously we got the whole hardware presentation just this last in March at some point. So, like, they haven't really ramped up their marketing yet. So I think it's totally fine if they push back their plans and start pumping the marketing plans out later. But Xbox is in a little bit more of a tricky position because obviously there's so much that goes into this marketing budget of pushing to a big console, and they've been doing a great job, but they started that really in earnest, like at the Game Awards, right, where they said, this is what the console looks like, and then frequently, feels like every single month, there's like, here's some more amazing news. So it's really hard for them to push at this point because they've already put so much money into like this marketing plan, and the longer that spreads out, the bigger the marketing budget becomes, the scarier it becomes for them. So,
well, and you also have Phil, who's like,
Mhm.
he did an interview 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago saying like, yeah, our console's not going to get delayed. Like, sounded really confident about it. It's just like, in the time like this, like, maybe it won't, but I would feel like you don't want to be so certain. Like, just play it like we hope that we stay on track, but you never know. But he came
Yeah.
off like really kind of, to me, just kind of brushing it to the side. And even then, let's say you could get the console out in November. Again, when we talk about sales, it might not be just even smart to put it out for financials, not even just other consoles, just in general. People might not be wanting to drop, especially, we didn't talk about this, I should throw this in, but there's rumors going around the PS4 price, right? And what was it? It was 400 American, so
Mhm.
that'd be like around 600 for us. So kind of same for the
Yeah.
PS4. And they've been very cagey. Even they did an interview with IGN this week, and again, he's pretty cagey with it, and he keeps talking about like it's going to be a solid price, but we're making the most powerful console ever. So again, if they are more expensive, and that's a lot of money. That's like a close to $500 console with people coming
Yeah.
off, like I said, lots of people unemployed. I just feel it's kind of asinine to be like, oh yeah, we're not going to be delaying it. It's just like don't close the door. Just leave it. So I feel, and
Mhm.
maybe they just like you said, maybe they feel they just have to with all this marketing, but. I don't know. Like right now, I just feel like it's not going to be. Who knows? Maybe that's what people need in the fall. But I think the PS5 for sure is a delay. I know we've said spring, but I don't even bat an eyelash at possibly even next time fall. Like 2021 fall, just to get that, because they, like you said, they've not done much ramp up, so they might want to
Mhm.
wait to get the ramp up. Who knows when Last of Us comes out? If Last of Us doesn't come out till springtime of next year, then same thing. We're not going to be getting that new console. Taylor, he'll probably talk about this, but he threw like in our group chat like his PS5 a possibility. Anything's a possibility because you never know. People make game mistakes all the time, but I don't think there's a chance. There's a strong chance of PS or Last of Us not going to PS4. So
Yeah.
I think that it's a huge domino effect. And even with Ghosts, they haven't said anything. I know it's probably because some people have said that they are, like, oh, they're trying to wait to see if it's going to be closer to that. But just with all the reports right now of how long this thing could last till things are getting normal, I just feel that I don't know, I'm back to my tinfoil hat of they're not too concerned with Ghosts, in my opinion. I don't think they think it's going to be a big seller. I think that game to me, it's going to be maybe a bit better than Days Gone, but that's kind of my theory right now. So that's my theory of why
Yeah.
nothing with Ghosts. I know it is because it's later on, but I also think it's because their Last of Us is their main concern. That and PS5, and I think there's a possibility where PS5 is delayed like a whole year, and I think Xbox should slow down. I know they spend money with marketing, but
Well,
don't rush it, because if they rush it, that could hurt them.
yeah, I don't know. I think I see it a bit differently. Like the at least if rumors are to be to believe that Xbox has like a less expensive SKU or something like that, or maybe not less expensive, but let's say a different version of the Xbox Series X. I think that's where they have maybe some wiggle room, right? Like let's say Xbox
Mm-hmm.
just goes ahead, even if production's limited. There's limited Xboxes. It's an annoying thing because like people are scalping them, and it's just like annoying. Whatever, their console's still out there. They're still the talk of the town for just this whole year, right? Like this whole year. Obviously, The Last of Us will probably still come out, maybe, but maybe it won't. Who knows? But Xbox is the talk of the town. Like this was their year, and then whenever PlayStation decides to drop PlayStation 5, then they can say, well, our cheaper SKU is coming out the same day, and just kind of undercut them. Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe that's in the cards. I just think there's so much, that they've already put into this plan that they have in place. And I did listen to that IGN interview. I think it's worth checking out for gaming fans. Like, it was a pretty good interview, and it's like an hour long or something. After you're done listening to this and done listening to our cocktail review, go check that out. But I think Phil, I don't know. I thought everything he said was pretty good, honestly. Like he was saying like, yeah, we're pretty confident. We're still going to go ahead. We don't really have a plan B, but we're still aiming for that holiday. And I think that, I don't know, who knows what the long term is. No one can say, but November is still really far away. So maybe things are better then. And even then, I still think if they can hit that November slot with the console and Halo Infinite on launch, I think that will still sell really, really well. Even if the console is limited and like it can't do that amazing with sales because of production limitations, if they still have Halo Infinite out on that November date, then that's still huge. Huge way to cap off the year for them and just set them up for like a successful 2021 as well. And then, like I said, with possibly rolling out another SKU or something. So I don't know. I think Xbox is in a pretty good spot, but I really feel like PlayStation at this point maybe should just say, hey, we're pushing. We're gonna have to, and I don't know, unless they have some big secrets like, hey, here's Horizon and it's coming out in November, because that would be wild if they had something like a Horizon or a Spider-Man 2 ready to go. That would change like the whole landscape of everything, and they could still launch and be successful. But I almost feel like at this point, just give it to Xbox for this year and just try again later, like whether it's a March or just a fall drop, who knows, but something like that.
Yeah, I'll throw it to you and say I just think I it's hard for me to get on the bandwagon because I've heard lots of people talk about like, oh, if Halo's dropping with it, it could be a real seller with it. To me, I just gotta wait to see that because we've seen so little of that. And to me, if it's just same old Halo, I just don't. I think it'll sell to its core fan base, but I think if it's November, especially if this thing, like we said, it's unforeseen, but let's say life is getting back to normal just in September, that's people who have been unemployed and just starting to work for 2 months before that console, and they're going to drop like so. Let's say the Xbox is American $600. Even let's say lower, it's 500, and then you got let's say maybe you need another controller. I'll take that out because maybe they're saying it's going to work with it, right? So just that and the game. I guess you got Games Pass, but the same thing we're talking about Last of Us. There's still enough people that aren't affiliated with online that they're still going to buy the game. That's where it's funny. In the next few years, I feel like digital now is going to move even forward because they don't, people like, not just the companies, people in general aren't going to want this to happen again. Like, hey, remember that time we were all locked inside and we couldn't get that game? That's the reason they want to get into a situation where Last of Us could sell to a bunch of people. So to me, I got to see more of Halo Infinite because I can't get on that narrative yet because no Halo or Gears, like none of their exclusives has pushed people to buy consoles other than their main people. And I just find it hard that in September, if it's 2 months after something like that, and it's just like people are going to be hurting, and to drop almost $700 on something new for a game that might just be another Halo, that's where I got to see if it's really doing like a God of War, like reinventing the wheel. And I just don't believe it's that. I don't know why. I just don't think it is.
I think. I mean, one, Xbox knows that this game needs to hit. They know that it has to be not just another Halo. It can't be Halo 5, which I frequently forget exists. Like, they know that. They've, been pumping out these Master Chief Collection, like, whatever's coming out on Steam and stuff like that. Like, I don't know. They're building that fan base back up, and I think they know it needs to hit, and they're prepared for that. I will say, in terms of pricing, like, right now there is a deal where you can pay, I think it's like $30-$50 a month, and they'll send you an Xbox One, and you're paying like a monthly fee. It's kind of bundled in with your Game Pass, and it's like a 2-year plan, like a phone, right? And you're paying it off slowly. And they did say at some point in one of their Inside Xbox that you can do this plan, and then at some point you can, increase that amount, whatever it is, and that will be incorporated with the Series X. So essentially, you're paying like you would with your phone, a monthly plan for your Xbox Series X, and maybe that's the key to success here is maybe they're not selling all these consoles for $600 on launch, but they have, millions of people who are on this monthly plan, which is already great because it's incorporated into Game Pass, and then you're getting it into people's homes. People are playing Halo. They're talking about Halo. Halo's great, and then everyone's happy. So I think maybe they are setting themselves up well, or like at least within these circumstances, perhaps they have some ways to navigate and adapt and still be successful this holiday season. So that's what do you got, Taylor? What are your thoughts on all this?
For me personally, I think that Xbox is in a situation where they're advertising for themselves. They're sticking to their marketing kind of game, and I think that's totally fine and fair. I do believe that at this point, yes, if a console were to release, and people don't have the money or anything like that, it's going to be difficult for them. But at the same time, if a console releases in a couple months or a few months, that it's first come first serve. If you're on that market and you're available, you're there. If someone wants to get little Jimmy the next Call of Duty and wants to get the next gaming console, they're gonna see like, oh, they're marketing the new PlayStation, but I could just buy an Xbox that has the game ready to go right now. It's just the fact that Xbox has their foot in the door, I think, is huge. I think that's very beneficial for them because, the world is on hold right now, but, shipping and delivery and everything like that is not. The world is still making shipments and deliveries all over the planet. People are still buying things. We're not working as much right now, but there are contingencies in play where, we can definitely kind of like compensate for that, and it's, I think, them putting Xboxes out for even like a pay-as-you-go kind of plan or different, methods. Microsoft will work with people so that people can have access to their consoles. To say and see it just being a flat-out fee of $5.99 or $6.99, maybe it could be that way, but I think there'll be alternatives set up, And for me, for the most part, I'm the kind of guy where I'll trade in my Xbox One S towards the next gen console. I'll go to like, EB Games or something like that to do it, and I'll shave off like $150 off of a new console. So I think that there's different ways to do it for everyone, and I think that Xbox already having marketed themselves and being out there, it's okay. I think that it's going to pay off for them, and I think that all of this kind of does is I really wish that Sony and PlayStation had put their foot out the door sooner than later, and I feel like they wish that too, because I don't think you're going to see a lot of information coming off of the PS5 really anytime soon. I think they're going to wait and hold all that information inwards until they get to a point where COVID-19's calmed down and they can start putting money into marketing themselves effectively everywhere. But by then, I feel like it may be too late, because Xbox already has a lot of traction, and it's rising right now. And that being said, again, like with Halo, it definitely needs like a good change, because Halo 5 was not successful by any means. It definitely sold a lot of copies, but there were a lot of people that were upset with so many changes they made to the game. But this time we have a brand new game engine, we have a brand new story. It looks like it's going right back to the roots. It's continuing the story, which is good, but even that cinematic trailer we got just felt like such a core original Halo moment, which is what I really want. And I feel like at this point, if Call of Duty Modern Warfare can just turn the tide and come back with like such a crazy delivery like they have with this game, in terms of popularity and everything, then I feel like a game like Halo has every bit of opportunity and possibility of doing just the same.
See, it's interesting that you brought up the little Jimmy argument, though, because that's where I think I would counter and say you have the possibility that backfiring of, yeah, okay, there could be a phone service thing like that, but let's say there's not. You have that thing of backfiring, I'm sorry, parents, if they're not working, if they're getting back to regular life, a new gaming console is going to be very, very low on people's lists. So, yeah. But that's what you're yeah, that's what you're talking about. That's what Dylan referred to too, where you're saying, "Oh, Sony should have got their foot out the door." I don't think they should have if they're not releasing it, because that's the thing. We're saying that you're saying like, "Oh, why did they go for PlayStation? Because the new one, there's only one established." Let's say a year from now, let's say Xbox does release in November, you have the chance of people not having money to spend it, and then when there is actual hype for PlayStation, when people have money, why would I get the old Xbox when I can get this new PlayStation that everyone's talking about? It's new, it has a new game. Like Dylan said, well, they have a Ghost drop if there's more time. Spider-Man's here. That's the thing where you're right. It could work if this is a new thing, there's nothing competing with it, but it could also work against them. Be like, we don't have the money right now. Let's save up. And then when they're ready to have the money, there's a cheaper console that's newer that has the hype. Because if Xbox comes out in November, all its hype, it won't be gone, but the hype is that launch, right? So the hype and the thing with Xbox is what would sustain its great games. They don't have a track record of this generation doing that. So to me, they drop Halo, let's say that's great, and then 6 months later, that hype will be gone, and I don't know if they'll have another game. If they don't have another game to reach that Halo-like height or anything, whether it's a new IP, that's where they could get screwed, where people have money now, the PS4 or the PS5 is launching. They got a great game. They got the hype. So that's where they got to be concerned, because I think the hardcores will, of course, do it. But I think, and I'd say the same thing for Sony. I think that's why they will move, because I think they're looking at it from that point of view. And I honestly think if it continues, I do think Xbox will move. I think it's just a lot of posturing right now. But posturing, sorry. But I think that could work against them. This is the only console. Like I said, if you don't have. Go ahead. Oh, I just said if you don't got the money, it's even, and like Dylan said, there is that phone option. Sure, could be, but even then, right? Like people, it's like the biggest unemployment rate in history for some countries. So it's like even then, if it's $40 a month, that could be $40 towards actual phone bill, schooling, stuff like we talk about this because it's our stuff, but it's when we're talking about like movies being delayed, and that's like $20, and analysts are already saying like, yeah, movies aren't going to be hitting $1 billion for at least 2 to 3 years. That's going to see a movie that's $15. Yeah. So even doing $40 gaming subscription, a parent might look at it and be like, sorry, we can't do that right now. Like, we got to pay bills legitimately. We got to pay rent. So that's where I think it could really hurt them.
Yeah. But, and I guess it definitely makes sense. I guess I'm looking at it too, like, if Xbox is out first and these games have already rolled out first, like if, let's say, the next Doom is out and, it's ready to go on the next gen console, PlayStation hasn't released yet, but people have that money and want to get in on this now, they're going to go for what's available now, either PC or that next gen console. It's those third party games that might give Xbox that edge, which could, again, what you said, it definitely things could backfire. People could be like, oh, by the time Xbox is out, the hype's over with, and I got money now, here's a new console, and it's getting these exclusives, but then it's just the exclusives that would be raking the people in. And it's hard to say too, because whether or not, like, if Xbox comes out, it's more expensive than what the PS5 is going to be, or it's cheaper, who knows at this point. But if it's already been out for a while, they could do sales, they could drop the price, they could price match with whatever PlayStation's price is going to be set at release, which then puts PlayStation at a risk, because PlayStation is forced to stick to that opening price tag, where Xbox has been out for a while. They can be flexible with it. If they need to drop that price, they can take into account, and they can, base off of like first earnings in their first quarter and kind of go from there and see how things are going to progress financially for them. So they get, I just feel like whoever releases first at this point, yeah, it's tricky with COVID, but it's just going to be a bit of a playing field, to play with numbers and see how things are going to progress and how they're going to do. Like, I feel like either way, like, I feel like Xbox is still in that good spot, but I do hate that Sony didn't market sooner than later, because it's just I feel like it's just a missed opportunity for them. And yeah, like, sure enough, the playing
How's it a missed
field-
opportunity though if it doesn't come out in November? Like Dylan was saying, Xbox, let's say Xbox does push their console, they could lose that hype, they could lose that marketing, that same thing. Where Sony, let's say they aren't coming out till spring, they can ramp that up, if that's where I think it is a good thing, because if Xbox comes out the same time they do now, they will, I think, start to lose the hype when they've released all their stuff already, and PlayStation can be the new shiny thing, right? So I think it's only a bad thing if it's this scenario. But one, we don't know for sure Xbox comes out in fall, and two, Sony hasn't even started. So if Sony is releasing in fall, I'll agree with you, but I don't think they are. So they'll have all of 2021 to like the first half to really build up.
They will. I guess the thing is, like, there's so many people that, there's a lot of diehards that'll wait, and there's a lot of people that are impatient in society, And yes, money is a huge factor in that, but I feel like, a lot of people are going to be like, oh, I could wait another, like, 6 months for that PlayStation 5, or I can just hop on this new game and start enjoying what I want to do now on the Xbox. And yeah, it'll be this shiny new thing, but it's going to be that console that has somewhat, better in some areas and then less in some areas compared to the Xbox One. People are gonna have the Xbox One and be like, well, I'm not gonna buy another console that I'm already, rocking the Xbox with. It's just another console that's providing the same almost like quality and tier in some aspects as the Xbox, and then better in other aspects compared to the Xbox. And it's just, why get that same console that just has different games and exclusives? It is for the games, but then
like last gen,
that's people that are going to be waiting for an extra 6 months, and the 6 months, I don't know, I'm just throwing 6 months, that was just an example, but it's a long period of time that could be enough to sway people over to an Xbox, in the sense where, okay, I have third-party games that I want to be playing on next gen now, and I need to hop on this right now. And again, you're right, there are those, like, parents of the little Jimmies that can't afford those kinds of things, but then who knows, maybe anything could happen. I mean, it's hard to say. If they feel like that eventually they come into money, or who knows, like, it's just if little Jimmy's throwing a tantrum and wants that new console, you never know.
Well, I think that's an interesting argument, is like the people who are going to be the crossover, the people that are going to buy both an Xbox Series X and a PS5, because that's already, like, if you're not in the industry, like, that's already kind of limited. Like, most people are going to just pick one, right? And that's where it actually becomes interesting, of like, me as a big PS4 fan, and obviously I'm really invested in like my Horizon sequel and not PlayStation, Spider-Man sequel. So I'm in the boat where, like, yes, I love everything about the Series X and I really want one, but let's say that November rolls around, the Xbox is out, PlayStation said, hey, we're pushing back, and there's no info. I can't just in good faith just go to the store and buy an Xbox. I gotta wait until I see what PlayStation's actually brewing. Like, I have to wait and see. So it might not be a thing of just pick up the Xbox and wait and see what I want to do with PlayStation. It's going to be, I'm going to wait on both. And maybe further down the line, I'll decide, okay, now, maybe I'm not so stoked about Spider-Man 2. Maybe, oh, they're not doing Horizon, they're doing Killzone. I don't care. I'm going to go get my Xbox now. But I think that'll be interesting, of like, just what is PlayStation's plan this year other than their Ghosts plan and their Last of Us plan? Like, what do they have cooking? Because that's where it becomes interesting. If people like, I don't know, already I feel like the number is pretty low of people who are going to buy both the next gen consoles, like at launch at least, or within that launch window. So I think that's interesting. But I want to touch on something that Travis said a while ago, is that like, yes, the Halo is great on launch, but I think that is really interesting that Xbox is going to need another at least massive game that's theirs, like in that coming months or around the PlayStation launch. And right now, I can't tell you what that's going to be. Like, obviously, they've acquired a bunch of studios. Hellblade is cool, but that is more niche. That's not going to be the game that blows everyone's socks off, unless it totally changes and is some different thing. But I think it'll be a more kind of restrained product, very sequelized to the first. So what is that going to be, right? Like, that's huge. You need another massive exclusive that's going to be the second wave, or, you know, when they do have that second SKU that comes out, like what's going to launch with that, or what's going to be near the PlayStation launch that they can kind of pull people to their side. And yeah, I mean, obviously they have all these studios that are probably working on some pretty cool stuff in secret, and who knows, maybe there's a Fable game on the loose, who knows, but I don't know. I really am curious what that's going to be, because that second game is almost like at this point is going to be more important than Halo, assuming PlayStation 5 does get pushed out of that November holiday slot of this year.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting times. And hey, at the end of the day, like the COVID stuff changed everything, but Switch released on it like no time, and they're just off on the side and they're making money, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as long as you're making a good console with good games, it can sell.
Yep,
so
it's true.
Did you guys have any other gaming news?
I don't think so.
Just Call of Duty Warzone. Season 3 is going to be starting soon, and we're going to get those 4s popping off there pretty quickly. I think there's less than...
Not confirmed, though.
What's that?
That's not confirmed for Season 3, right? That's just your speculation?
Well, no, like they confirmed that I believe 4s are definitely coming in a future update, and at this point it's my speculation because the thumbnail for Season 3 has a 4-man team in Warzone on the front, and then a 4-man team paratrooping in behind with Warzone loadout smoke. So to me, that's like them just kind of
It does,
nodding.
but like when you point that out, the 4-person with them standing there, the 4-person is like so off the background. Like that's what I don't want people to think that once this update happens, it's the automatic 4. I think that's the plan, but they've not officially said, "Hey, once the season starts, we're here."
Just like the final circle, Taylor has a knack for figuring this stuff out. So I'm gonna trust him on this one.
It's those COD gods, I tell you. But that drops April 8th, though.
Oh, sweet.
There you go. Well, yeah, hope for those 4-man teams. Yeah. The only thing we forgot to touch about on movie TV before we ended today, I just want to get your quick thoughts because a fan asked us. So I imagine you finished Tiger King. What are your thoughts on that? And also, pick your brain. What are your thoughts? You're asking. It's been confirmed, I guess, that next week is when this new episode drops. So, what do you think about the show quickly, and what do you want from this next episode? I guess.
Well, I've definitely not finished the show.
You haven't?
No,
okay.
I've been jumping through so many different marathons. It's definitely in my list of shows I've been watching. So, but I mean, from what I have seen, it's like I don't know, like I feel like all the characters' personalities are so out there, and like I'm not that I'm like a huge animal rights activist or something like that, but I definitely think there's a lot of there's a lot of like I think misinformation in it at the same time as there is like real information. Like for me personally, overall, like I'm looking at this show just at the tigers, and I think I hate that they're all here. Like just the fact that Joe Exotic has like over 200 tigers in his thing, I hate that so much. And then Carol Baskins is just a complete hypocrite, all downright. So yeah, they're all personalities, and they're all kind of just janky, I guess, at times. I'm curious to see what this other this next episode is going to actually entail, and what's actually going to be incorporated with it. But yeah, I still got a few more episodes to kind of go through, but it's it's funny how this show has just kind of surfaced now, and like I feel like personally it's only popular because everyone's locked in and everyone's just like made it popular.
I think that has I think that has to do with the mass growth. I think it was going to be popular no matter what because the Joe Exotic guy is just such a character. But I agree that I think people being locked at home. I think that's more toned to us getting this new episode though now.
Oh yeah.
Getting kind of, I won't say rushed out, but for me it feels rushed out. Like when we got Making a Murder, we did get a part 2 of that, like the follow up all these people, their lives, but that was a few years later. This is like 2 weeks after the show was dropped, and clearly I imagine they're still working on stuff just because there's like one of the murder case has been reopened, and Jeff Lowe is like, he's this really shady guy in the documentary, and he doesn't like how he's been portrayed, so they're gonna interview him. So obviously that's like, it's kind of like DLC with documentaries, right? You can always go back and keep adding and whatnot. So yeah, I like the show like everyone else. It is kind of like a crazy peek in the world. The best way I describe it, if you haven't seen it, one, it is like a bunch of crazy tiger people being weird, but it feels like a Batman reality show about the villains, because it's all like, it's like there's 4 different like tiger people, and they're all kind of like bad, shitty people in their own way, and you get to see like, oh, one's like the Penguin where he's a silent club owner, and one's like the Joker where he's really out there, and then one's like Poison Ivy with Carol where she's like very quiet, but you know she's up to something bad. Like, that's the way I describe it. It feels like a reality show about supervillains, just like, or very small time crime villains, and but they don't think of themselves that way. So yeah, I watched this new episode. I don't know what they're going to cover. Like I said, those few updates I give you, I imagine that's what they're going to, but it feels a little quick. But hey, you got to strike while the iron's hot, right? And everyone's home, so everyone will be watching it. Everyone's still talking about it. Joe Exotic memes are all over the place.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I think it's one, if you like these type of Netflix documentaries, stuff like that, kind of trashy TV, I think you'd enjoy it. If not, it's nothing you haven't seen before, but I do think it is a crazy story, and I think it's worth watching. I like that type of stuff. So yeah, it's pretty wild.
Yeah, it definitely is wild. Like the threats and everything that's going around, like in that show. It just like, you know, I just, yeah, I'm just looking at the tigers and I feel bad for them. You know, I just see like these little baby tigers being manhandled around it, like kid from kid to kid, and I just think, damn, this is just horrible. You know, I would love to see these tigers just be out in the wild, and the fact that there's more of them in, like, as pets in captivity than there are out in the wild, it's so saddening to see that. And yeah, it's horrible, but I'm glad that the show is out there to create this awareness of this. But yeah, Carol Baskins is just an absolute basket case. So
wow. Basket case. I forgot to do this at the beginning of the episode, but Taylor, where can they find us? Because I don't think we have any other news. So where can they find us on the interwebs?
Oh, they can find us with your internet connection in the search bar, ladies and gentlemen, Geekverse Space Podcast. And check out our website, geekverse.ca, Geekversecast on Twitter, and make sure when you go on Facebook, tune into our Clone Wars poll. It's popping off. Changes every day at 6 p.m. And I believe this newscast is going up today, right?
It'll be going up probably late tonight or Monday, so probably, yeah, they can still vote on the one that's dropping April 5th.
April 5th, yeah, so that'll be, yeah, Darth Sidious versus the Son of Mortis, so 2 heavy dark side teams going at it.
I wonder who will win. Yeah, so thank you very much for tuning in. As always, like we talked about later on in the week, we'll be dropping a retrospective. Clone Wars is always dropping the actual episodes. And yeah, we're going to keep doing newscast retrospectives. And then we got some other content, some fun shows planned that might be dropping on the channel next little while. So maybe retrospectives might be getting kicked up a little early because, you know, there's not many stuff to talk about, so we need some good stuff, and I think you'll enjoy everything. So we thank you always for support. In the details down below is the audio and video feeds. Go down to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star written review. We'd really appreciate that. Or subscribe anywhere where you watch or listen. We'd really appreciate that, because you guys are the one that keep the show going. You keep it afloat while in these hard times. So thank you very much for tuning in. We'll see you next week for 348, and it will not be boring.
Bye, everyone.
Have a good one.